Kylie Jenner from 2014 to 2016 was like the best A&R in music.
I mean, that was like the birth of streaming growth.
He was essentially like the poster child of Apple Music for those first few months.
But it grows 50% each quarter straight, almost exactly, like incremental growth for the whole year.
Like that's how much of an influence he had on Travis Scott, is he literally put his government first name as his artist stage name.
Which is, again, like totally unheard of. Never, ever, ever see that kind of behavior.
I really think that Bryson Tiller's come up story, like it needs a documentary, because it was just like the epitome of like this era, really. Yeah, man, I'm really excited about this one. I was just bumping like so many 2014 to like 2015 SoundCloud bangers like back to back before this call.
Right.
Like, it was like, for me, that era was like probably my favorite of like streaming, honestly. When all these like R&B and like rap artists were doing like remixes on SoundCloud. Because before it was like you would have to like download a mixtape to hear like the Lil Wayne, like the Drought 3 or like Dedication 5, like him hopping on like the most popular song beats, just going crazy on them. But SoundCloud really was like a special time, especially around probably 2013 to 2016. I feel like the last artists that really blew up from SoundCloud were probably Uzi and Playboy Cardi. But
Okay.
I'm really stoked about this one in particular because for me, Bryson Tiller's first album, Trap Soul, is like one of my favorites of the 2010s and maybe all time. I think it's just an incredible body of work across the board, front to back. His whole come up story is very much like, in my opinion, a crazy like divine timing kind of thing. Just right place, right time. So many factors like just perfectly came together for him to take off like he did at the very beginning of his career. Definitely stoked to get into that today.
Yeah. So I was looking at the earnings and I wanted to ask you, because you normally have a good finger on the pulse of this stuff.
Yeah.
Has he done like some big social media like something in the last like 2 years?
No, so it's interesting you mentioned that because I was looking at it too, and just from the stream side also, I noticed that the song Sorrows, which is the main one for this listing, that's
Yeah.
a shit ton of the revenue, like a probably, I don't know, what, 90% maybe
Yeah,
more
it's a big
around that.
percentage.
Yeah, so that song is from his 5-year anniversary album of his debut Trap Soul from 2015. One thing about Bryson Tiller that's pretty crazy is like he's a pretty big superstar in like the R&B like hip hop world, but he's so quiet on social media, and he always has been since he first came out. I don't think he has any like in-person interviews like at all. Like he is so quiet, but his music is so popular with the female audience. They're always posting like lip sync videos to it, or like get ready with me like makeup videos. And I think like that R&B pocket like bag is like very popular with the ladies in general. And so he kind of became like the poster child for that from 2014, 2015 on. But this song in particular, I saw that it had some pretty big TikTok activity from original sounds from not the official sound, but different, like the sped up version audio profiles that have hundreds of thousands of followers creating their own versions of the song. And I think when I was looking at the streams, it sort of bottomed around summer of 2022 and has just been rising since then. So I think that's a combination of the TikTok growth, but then also it just getting back in rotation with people because he has a really dedicated fan base.
Okay.
A lot of his songs are just high retention in general. Like he doesn't really drop a single and it have a big first week and it just fall off. It's really consistent across the board, like forever.
See, that's super interesting because like in the 2023 earnings, Sorrows, each quarter the earnings from which are basically all from streaming, like pretty much. But it grows 50% each quarter straight, almost exactly, like incremental growth for the whole year. Which is like for a song that's like 3 years into its life, that's like unusual but promising, right? As far as like you're talking about it getting back into a strong earnings life, like there it is right there, 50% quarter over quarter growth for a whole year, and it's years into its release, years already. I mean, it's basically mirroring its initial release earnings. It actually exceeded them. The fourth quarter 2023 earnings from Sorrows are larger than the second quarter 2021 earnings, which is the release, which is again like totally unheard of. Never ever see that kind of behavior. It's like wild.
It's completely active listening, people going to the song and like wanting to hear it specifically. So I think that he's just an artist that at the end of the day makes really good music. People gravitate towards it not because of like any particular viral trend, but because it's good and like it sort of becomes soundtracks in people's lives. And you've seen that from pretty much all the music that he's released in his career up to this point.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the sources of earnings, it's Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube. Which, yeah, I mean, if it's not being playlist curated, then yeah, that's people playing it themselves, seeking out the song itself and hitting play. Especially with the YouTube stuff, and that's I think the third highest earner. So yeah, I mean, it's just people seeking it out and playing it, which is like awesome, right? Like that's what we want. Organic listenership, people who actually like the song and actually listen to it. People who throw it on repeat or put it on in their car while they're driving to work, you know, like, or doing their TikTok getting ready with me videos, you know.
It's definitely one that people listen to like when they're getting ready to go out or just anytime throughout the day, really.
Pre-bar going out on a Friday night, right? What do you like? What do you know about Bryson Tiller's come up?
I know pretty much everything. Like he was one of my favorite artists. Like when he first came up, and when I was talking about the divine timing, like I'll get into his comebacks, or not his comeback, his come up story right now. Essentially, he's from Louisville, Kentucky, which isn't really known for its music scene in general. Like big city, but we don't really hear about it too often in like mainstream media. He first started gaining like a little bit of traction from just posting songs on SoundCloud in 2014. His first big song, Don't, which went crazy, it was everywhere. Got really big around summer 2015, but came out in 2014. And his debut album, Trap Soul, came out on RCA in October 2015. Both in that time period, like when Don't was blowing up in his debut album, a lot of crazy things were happening that really set him on this like fast track to stardom. The first one, I don't know if you know this, but Kylie Jenner from 2014 to 2016 was like the best A&R in music. Have you heard of the Kylie Jenner Snapchat story effect?
No.
Okay, so Kylie Jenner would literally play songs on her Snapchat story in this era, and they had like a direct correlation to increasing in streams like crazy. Her posting Don't helped Bryson blow up. She posted the artist Black Problems. She posted Khalid Location. When she posted Location, it saw like a 27x increase in streams the next week.
Wow.
Like she had a huge effect on the music industry back in this time. Like Snapchat was huge back then. So that was kind of like the TikTok of that era when you think about it.
I mean, that was like the birth of streaming growth. So as an artist blowing up while all those mechanisms blow up, it's like a huge compound effect as far as like, let's use the word clout in this case. Right. And that in music, especially, right? Like that compounds so quickly.
Yeah, but essentially like his music was very polarizing because honestly it was really unique for the time period. And I even went to Lollapalooza in 2014. I saw Travis Scott there before his debut album came out, Rodeo, and his DJ Chase B was playing Bryson Tiller songs like during their set before his debut album even came out. Bryson actually played his first shows ever opening up for Travis Scott's Rodeo album release party in LA. Oh, cool. I remember seeing videos. He had Justin Bieber performing on stage with him. He had The Weeknd there in attendance, the Kardashians, Kanye, the Jenner sisters, like Bella Hadid. So everyone, like he was just in the right place at the right time with all these big influential people who were posting his music on socials. And then I think the biggest thing for him to really take it to the next level was summer 2015 was when Apple Music first came out. And so Apple Music wanted to start off with a bang. No better way to do this than by sort of helping a new artist blow up, right? They were promoting Don't like crazy. Like this was when it was really taking off on SoundCloud, but they were essentially like giving him like the keys to the building. Like it was all over the front page. It reached number 13 on the Billboard Top 100. And then when his debut album came out, he was essentially like the poster child of Apple Music for those first few months. So they really gave him a lot of free promo because it was just good for them to be like the streaming platform where like this new dope artist was coming up on.
I mean, look, it's paid off. You know, Apple Music is easily number 2 music streaming service, at least in the US. You know, we don't count Tencent and companies like that. But it's also like the most earnings for Bryson Tiller's track Sorrows come from Apple Music. I mean, it's like 60% higher than Spotify, which is the second highest earner. So it's, you know, success is a two-way street in that case. You know, like Apple did it right. Bryson did it right too.
He also mentions these guys in one of the songs in this listing, 502 comma, which is like the Louisville area code. But
Okay.
around this time, 2014, 2015, like some sports stars were coming up that were from Louisville too. D'Angelo Russell, who plays for the LA Lakers. He was a freshman at Ohio State and became the number 2 draft pick in the NBA that year. And then Devontae Parker, who was a wide receiver, I think drafted mid first round in the NFL, might have been the first receiver off the board in 2015 to the Dolphins. They were both from Louisville, and they were all three of them were showing each other love on socials, and like they were going to his shows, he was going to their games, he shouted them out in his music. Hip hop, most notably out of any genre, has always like been very close to sports, whether it's references. There's always like the saying like the rappers want to be athletes and the athletes want to be rappers, and I think like this was just another example of how just divine timing, right? Like, who would think that 2 like basketball and football players from Louisville, Kentucky would be first round, like high draft picks the exact same year that this musician from Louisville was making a name for himself and like getting put on by Kylie Jenner and Apple Music. I really think that Bryson Tiller's come up story, like it needs a documentary because it was just like the epitome of like this era, really.
Well, what they say is like, right, real recognize real. So now the
Mhm.
other big piece, let's say like a quarter of the pie, is from Kid Cudi, who's a name that I didn't expect to be talking about on this for a while. I mean, like I loved Kid Cudi back in the 2010 eras. So I'm really, really psyched to see his name on this one. What can you tell me about Kid Cudi in recent history?
Kid Cudi is definitely one of the most influential artists of the mid 2000s to 2010s from a musical standpoint. He really popularized like the melodic hip hop.
Yeah.
It was like him and Drake are probably the most influential artists in hip hop music, in my opinion, as far as like newer artists directly contributing like their sound to the music that they make. You can look at like Travis Scott, who's probably the biggest example. Like he literally, his stage name, the Scott, is because of Kid Cudi, Scott Miscudi, which is Kid Cudi's real name. Like that's how much of an influence he had on Travis Scott, is he literally put his government first name as his artist stage name. His Man on the Moon album series, this song in particular comes from the 3rd installment of it, which came out probably like a decade after the second album, Man on the Moon 2. And this song features Pop Smoke and Skepta, RIP Pop Smoke. Pop Smoke was like on his way to becoming one of the biggest artists in music before he tragically was killed. And yeah, he was like kind of being recognized as the next era, like 50 Cent voice wise. Like he was really bringing back New York hip hop in a way that people hadn't really seen in like years. And then Skepta, who is one of the OGs in the UK grime scene and has gotten a lot of love from artists across the world, probably most notably Drake in the last half decade to decade. But yeah, he's always been heralded as this super dope MC, always been independent, which is awesome. And yeah, I mean, them three on a track is pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's a mix of a bunch of different what's the best way to put it? It's like a marriage of a bunch of different artistic geniuses, you know, which is like kind of like the holy grail of music, right? So we have in this collection of tracks, we have Bryson Tiller's anomalous success in streaming, and then a convergence of some of the most influential names in music in the last 10, 15 years also on the track. And that's what makes up this catalog. And it's again all from streaming, right? Like again, nothing short term, no like, oh yeah, it got placed in this one movie and so it lives and dies with the movie, right? Like no, it's just people going and finding the music and playing it. Organic cash flow.
Yeah, I think I'm looking at the sources right now and just both of these songs that are like the major contributors. It's kind of cool to see that these are like huge artists, but neither of these songs got basically any radio play, and that there isn't like a out of control like force that is playing a part in these earnings. It's all active listening by, you know, real people that want to listen to these artists every single day. And I think the coolest thing about both of these artists too is that Kid Cudi and Bryson Tiller could not drop any music for probably the next 10 years. But if they announced a tour, it would sell out immediately.
Oh,
just going to show how prevalent the core fan base is.
Absolutely. I mean, it's interesting when you see that kind of behavior, right? Like we've talked about evergreen and what that means before on this channel. You know, what you've mentioned about Travis Scott taking on the name Scott, right? Well, what makes something evergreen is when other media references media. That's how you like draw the line. And this is the most meta that I've ever seen, where you have the creation point, the artist referencing the other artist in their persona. You know, it's like
Yeah,
the most meta evergreen I've ever seen. Like he's done some cool stuff too. Like in the last years, he even got into acting. It's in a bunch of movies too. It's crazy. You
yeah,
see him all over the place. So yeah, I was pretty stoked to see that his name was on this catalog too. I
yeah.
think it's
No, I
awesome.
saw Kid Cudi was in oh, what's the name of that movie? It was like a horror
Yeah,
slasher
it's called
movie.
X.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Not like
that
this
movie is
dude is
awesome.
yeah, he's going crazy and he's A24, like critically acclaimed, like darling films. Like he's crushing it all across the board. And I think that even probably helps with the streaming too. It's like people go see him there and they're like, wait, is that Kid Cudi? And then they come back home and
And they
open
listen
up
to the music,
Spotify. And then they go
right?
back to like the past 10, 15 years of his
Oh
amazing
yeah,
catalog.
it's just that little catalyst
Yeah.
for the streaming. Now, hey, maybe that's the reason why it blew up in the last 3 years. You know, like who knows? Who knows, man?
It all
Oh.
plays a part.
Yeah, right. It's all connected. It's all connected. But
Hmm.
that also like that lends credit to like the interconnectivity of like you're talking about the who's who. We're at these shows, right? And then the connection with Kylie Jenner and all these other influential people in other spheres, right? It creates that compounding effect, especially with music, right? Something that's so easily consumed and so easily spread. It just compounds on itself so quickly. And that's how you see success like this, where it just blows up on streaming and all these people love it.
Yeah. No, you hit it right on the head. And this catalog, there's actually two separate listings for this catalog on Royalty Exchange right now. So you
Yep.
can go check them out, place an offer. The financials look very solid. Both of these artists have crazy cultural and musical influence on, the past 10 plus years and even future artists that are coming up right now. Anything else you want to say, John?
No, I'd say go check them out. Reach out to us when you have questions. We're here. And yeah, catch you guys next week. We're doing some
See you
other
in the next video.
so yeah, we're doing
Subscribe if
some
you're new.
we're doing some another cool one in the next video. So I think you guys will be excited.